Welcome everybody. Welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge. Another busy week for Lazio, so we have plenty of things to talk about. With me, as usual, Alistair Mackenzie. Hello, Alistair. How are you?
Hello, very good, very good. It was nice to see Lazio in a decent high-profile friendly yesterday, even though, obviously, as we're about to discuss, I'm sure the result wasn't exactly what we're looking for.
No, you're right. The result wasn't what everybody was hoping, but sorry, the train is passing through. But we saw some positive things. I don't know. It's the typical friendly match where you can see the glass half full and half empty, depending on what you see it. I don't know, Alistair, if you agree, but I thought Lazio created a lot of chances, and maybe with Immobile instead of Caicedo, it could be a draw 2-2. Instead, it was a 2-0 for Arsenal.
Yeah, I mean, it's the story of our lives, really, isn't it? What would have happened if it wasn't Caicedo? Yeah, I think you're right. Lazio did create a fair few chances, and that was a positive. Obviously, Ciro missing, you take away so much of Lazio's threat going forward. So I think it was positive, actually, from the creative aspect, what we managed to carve out. But again, I don't know if you agree, but I think defensively there were a few concerns for me there. Obviously, we are still pre-season. Inzaghi made a good point after the match, which is that Arsenal are further ahead with their pre-season preparation. They've been doing it for a bit longer, so fitness-wise, they were always going to be a bit sharper. But defensively, particularly down our right-hand side with Wallace and Basta, I thought we looked really vulnerable, and Arsenal were really exposing us by attacking down their left over and over again. So I think that's going to show, it's a big step up from the friendlies we've had so far to playing Arsenal. Conceding 2 goals isn't the end of the world, but I think structurally we still need a bit of work defensively.
Yes, because as you were saying, it's not allowing Arsenal to score 2 goals, it's how they score the goals, I thought it was poor defending from Lazio players. On the first one, Basta completely did a wrong movement, and on the second, Wallace could have tackled a little bit harder, especially when you are in the box. So I totally agree with what you're saying, and this brings me to another question. I was surprised, honestly, to see pretty much the same starting 11 that Inzaghi chose for the last friendly at Toronto. I thought it was the perfect chance to give a chance to other players like Durmisi or Bastos or Patrick to play and see if they are at the same level of the others. We already saw Basta and Wallace enough for me to give a chance to the others.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, it's something. We talked about that slightly last week as well, where for week 1 of the season, if you're thinking that perhaps Inzaghi's looking ahead to the team he wants to play in that opening game against Napoli, well, you've got Senad Lulic and Lucas Leiva suspended for that game, so why not at least attempt to use a different lineup to kind of prepare for their absence as well. So I think that, it was a little bit disappointing. Also, we talked last week about those press conferences, the comments of Inzaghi and Faris about maybe using a 3-4-2-1. I was kind of hoping, I thought it was a bit ambitious, but I was hoping in the back of my mind that we'd see that from the start and, trying something different. And we didn't get that either. So it wasn't the most original, but then again, it is only the second or maybe arguably third challenging friendly we've had. So maybe it's not the worst idea to kind of stick with what you know for now, and then maybe, hopefully in that Dortmund game, try things a bit differently.
I think one of the reasons why Inzaghi didn't change tactically is because Berisha is still out with an injury. So without Berisha, I believe Inzaghi doesn't think they have an option for a player who can play in that position near Leiva. But I agree with you saying, Napoli's match is not far away. It's 2 weeks' time from today. So you're not gonna have a lot of tests in front of you. So maybe it was worthy. I'm not saying play all the match without them, but maybe start and do the first half without Lulic and Leva that you already know are gonna miss the first match of the season, and give time enough to see which can be the best solution to replace them. And the other funny thing, Alistair, I don't know if you thought about that, is we keep hearing rumors that Basta is not in Inzaghi's project. Lazio's thinking of selling Basta, etc. Yeah, but he started the last 3 friendly matches. So, are we sure that he's not in Inzaghi's mind? Because if he's not, then why don't you start, I don't know, Patrick or Lombardi? I'm a little bit concerned about that.
Yeah, and especially with Patrick having this week just signed a new contract as well. And you would have thought, if anything, that a new deal for Patrick means complete confirmation that he is going to be one of the alternatives on the right-hand side next season. So, yeah, it's hard to really read what's happening with Basta. I mean, unless it's the last opportunity he's being given by Inzaghi and he's saying, look, you need to go out and perform in these games if you want to have a future here. I mean, I don't know what you thought about him. I thought actually going forward, he had quite a good game, and particularly in the first half, he created a few chances and was putting some pressure on the Arsenal defence in an attacking sense. But again, like I said at the start of the show, leaving gaps defensively. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the best approach with him is, but I think it's clear that if he's going to be sold, he has to be sold soon to try and get somebody else in, because Marisic and Patrick, maybe Lombardi, for me, it's not enough on the right-hand side, really.
No, and I believe that Lulic and Bastas played because, as Faris said in Auronzo, they're trying different solutions tactically for the defense, and he said that pretty much those two were the only available in the training in Auronzo. I believe Durmisi, they believe, is not ready yet. They are still not, still didn't understand the movement. That's my thought. But yeah, honestly, as today, I don't believe Lazio's thinking of selling Basta. I think they want to use it as a solution there. Basta can also play in the 3 defenders. We saw it last year. So I think it's an option. But again, as you were saying, Patrick just renewed his contract. Why don't give him a chance? Even Lombardi, there were a lot of rumors in the last week or so of a list of players who would go in Germany to the second part of the summer training. And there were a lot of rumors like Lombardi shouldn't go, etc. I think Inzaghi has something in mind, but it would be good to communicate it to the fan as well, so you don't create all these rumors around.
Yeah, and we've got enough of that as it is, Yeah. There's enough of that in the other parts of the squad that we don't really need it about our kind of reserve right back, so it doesn't really matter that much, But yeah, I was particularly surprised about Patrick. I think if you're going to give him a new contract, you need to play him. Seems obvious.
Yes. We have a couple of questions already. Torsten Gustafsson, who do we want at third choice, Rossi or Neto? I think he was talking about Vice Immobile. Rossi would probably benefit from to play as a regular in Serie B. Well, yesterday in the friendly match against Arsenal, Neto played. And again, there have been a lot of rumors about Neto not going to Germany in the training camp because of the list of 25. A lot of people write about things without thinking. Let's remember that Pedro Neto and Bruno Jordao will not be in the 25 list just because they're under 21. So they are like jolly, players that you can add outside the list. So I don't understand why Inzaghi would not take them, knowing that he will have them available in the season, whatever happens. So it doesn't make sense. And I think seeing Neto play it's good because he has talent. I think he has to adapt to the Serie A level. Maybe he's not ready there, but training with the pros like Immobile, etc., will help him mature faster.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, it's been clear ever since they came in that the club's wanting to be patient with their development, and despite all the noise and press that was around their signing, and obviously the money behind it, and how excited everyone was about their talent, they're going to take their time with them, and I think that's the right approach. So I still think for me, Rossi is probably more ready for that than Neto would be. He's already had a season in Serie B at least. Even if he wasn't, tearing up trees in that league, he still has had senior experience there, and obviously he's had a very impressive preseason too. But I do, yeah. I mean, the comment we had there, I think it's just a really difficult argument because if he was to make an impact as a third choice striker and get straight into the Lazio team and score a few goals, then that's going to benefit his development hugely. But then again, if he's in Serie B and he's playing every week, then obviously that's a bonus for him too. But if it was purely between those two and who's more ready, I think for me it'd be Rossi over Neto at the moment.
And Rossi is more a striker, a central forward, while Neto is more a trequartista. I see more Neto as second striker near Immobile or playing like Luis Alberto than playing like Ciro Immobile. To be true, Alessandro Rossi evolved. He was more a second striker, not a trequartista, but a striker like Beppe Signori, let's put it like that. Then he improved and become a central forward. So I agree with you. I think Rossi is the better option. I don't know. After yesterday, do you think still Caicedo is a valid replacement for Ciro Immobile? I don't think so, but I want to hear your thoughts too.
What Rossi
Caicedo.
as the Vice Immobile, you mean?
No, Caicedo.
Oh, Caicedo. Oh no. In no way. I mean, it does just seem like we're just waiting to sell him. It doesn't seem like another player is going to come in until he's been sold, and probably the sooner the better. We've made our opinions pretty clear about Caicedo. I think everyone has, to be honest, by this point. So he's just not cut out to be the guy who leads the line. And I think I made a comment last week about saying, he's never going to be your 20, 25 goal a season striker. And somebody came back and said, it's not realistic for us to have a 25 goal a season striker as a Vice Immobile. That's not really the point I was making. It's more that Caicedo's attributes, his strengths, aren't in front of goal. It's not about finishing. It's about link-up play, about strength, about movement. And yeah, you can criticise those elements of his game if you want as well. But the point is that we need, as Vice Immobile, somebody that we can rely on to put the ball in the net. And yes, they're not going to score 20, 25 goals in the season, but you want at least an outside chance that they're going to be able to poach a goal, that they're going to have a good enough finishing ability to take advantage of chances that they're given. I mean, case in point, yesterday, Lazio, in the first half, had an absolutely beautiful move up the pitch, great passing, movement, and Luis Alberto, I think it was, squared it to Caicedo. Yes, difficult pass, but he completely fluffed his lines and his finish went wide. You need someone who's at least going to get that on the target, and Caicedo, for me, is never going to be that kind of player. So I think we just need someone more deadly, someone who's going to score goals.
Yes, because the fact is that Lazio will never, this is my opinion, with Luis Alberto and all the players that Lazio have, the problem won't never be creating chances, will be finishing chances. And we saw that Caicedo is not that type of player. We don't need a player that creates chances because we have other options there. We need a finisher. And Immobile can create chances and finish them and score. Caicedo is not that type of player. So, to be honest, I was surprised and astonished by the quotes of Simone Inzaghi saying that Caicedo is the Vice Immobile and he's happy with that. Honestly, I don't know if he said it just because he had to and couldn't say no, we are looking to place Caicedo somewhere else. But I think the here Inzaghi is making a mistake.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we all saw last season the damaging impact of losing Ciro. It really does damage the team. And yeah, if anything, we need needs someone who's sharper in front of goal to lead the line in his absence. And Caicedo, if he was playing in a in a 4-4-2 or something, in a more traditional formation where he's in a strike partnership, then you can see the use. But if he's leading the line by himself, I just don't see him as a focal point of this attack that's going to be productive enough to really get us the results that we're going to need.
Yeah. Yesterday, finally, the debut of Milinkovic Savic. Alistair, is funny because every day there's a new rumor, a new team linked to Milinkovic Savic. Today is Inter. Yesterday was AC Milan. 3 days ago was Manchester United. I don't know. Will it ever end?
Apparently not. No. I mean, I think though that this is actually, bear with me here, quite a promising sign. It seems like the journalists who have been reporting all summer on the various clubs he's about to go to are now getting a bit desperate if they're talking about the Milan clubs. Because it's just not going to happen. I mean, for financial fair play reasons, as much as anything else, these clubs are not going to be able to buy Milinkovic Savic, and Lotito has absolutely no interest in a loan deal with obligation to buy or a player exchange. It's not going to happen that way. He's got his price, and he wants that price, and that's it. I was surprised earlier. We got a comment on Twitter from Stallion, saying the obvious question is who are we going to get as a replacement for Milinkovic Savic, who seems certain to be gone. Lazio's sixth placed at best without him. Team is undercutting the fans at this late stage before the season. I couldn't disagree more. I don't think he is certain to be gone at all. I think at this point, if he's being linked to clubs who can't afford him and to deals that Lotito isn't going to let happen, it's putting us in a position of relative strength, I'd say. And the clock is ticking, obviously. The English market closes in 4 days. I don't see any of the teams in Italy signing him. So I think we're looking quite good at the moment. I don't want to jinx it, but I think it's looking okay.
Yeah, it was too funny, honestly, the rumors about AC Milan. They said that Leonardo was going to Rome to talk about Lotito, with Lotito of Milinkovic Savic, and the offer was 40 million now and then 80 next year. Loan with not obligation, but rights to buy the player. So, pretty much we were giving Milinkovic Savic to AC Milan for 1 year only for 40 million euros, pretty much for free. And again, Milinkovic Savic was happy about that, and Lotito was thinking about the idea, didn't make sense at all. But this tells you even how little consideration Lazio has in Italy. It was funny because last night Sky journalist, expert of transfer market, had to tweet, I've been asked a lot, but I can confirm that there's no any news about Milinkovic Savic to Milan. It's not an object of Milan. There's nothing there. So, they're putting clubs just to create, I don't know why, just a little bit of discussion. The other thing is, yesterday after the match, Milinkovic Savic spoke. He said he was really happy to see all those fans at Padella when he went for the medicals, that he's happy at Lazio and that he's thinking just to improve here. And then he said, well, the transfer market, you never know. And some of the newspaper titled Milinkovic Savic, I'm at Lazio at the moment, but who knows? And cut off all the other part, where he was saying that he was happy to be at Lazio. So, it's really annoying, but as you were saying, time is running out. Unfortunately, I believe that even after the transfer window will close, they will keep talking about that in the next days.
Of course. I mean, what else are they going to talk about? It's going to have to talk about it somehow. Yeah, I mean, and the other thing is, you mentioned his comments there. The thing is worth remembering is that the comments have never changed. There's never been a point at which Milinkovic Savic, his agent Mattia Kesman, Claudio Lotito, Iglitare, Simone Inzaghi, there's never been a point where anyone who actually matters in these negotiations, if they were to happen, has said that he's interested in leaving or that there's a chance of him leaving. It's always been the same, which is what you just said. I'm happy to be here. I've got a contract at Lazio, got a job to do. So it's worth listening to what the actual people close to the player are saying rather than what the newspaper reports are saying.
Yes, absolutely. And to be honest, Milinkovic-Savic had the chances like happened in the past with Biglia or Keita, not showing to the medicals, not going on the summer training camp, says that find an excuse to not show up. Instead, he's there. He has no problem to do videos for Lazio fan, etc. So you can see that he's happy there at the moment. And I believe he's smart enough to think that he stays another year with Lazio, he can improve, he can grow, and then you see what happens next summer and decide where to go from there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if he stays another season at Lazio and he plays at that level again, I honestly don't think the fans are really going to hold it against him too much if he does leave the club next summer. Because, yeah, he's behaved very professionally the whole way through. He does seem to have a real appreciation for the club, for the fans, and he's been, but it's good that you mentioned the likes of Keita and Biglia, and they're not the only ones, but if you compare the way that he has reacted to this kind of speculation against those other players, then, it's like night and day, really. He's been very professional the whole way through. If we can get another season of him playing his absolute best, and then he moves on, I wouldn't hold it against him. I don't think many fans would.
No, absolutely. We have other question from Franco Spicciarello, who says Lazio spent 47 million for Acerbi, Correa, Berisha, etc. Made 37 from Felipe Anderson. The total paycheck is lighter since De Vrij, Marchetti and Djordjevic left. The balance sheet showed profit. Why isn't Lazio spending for a sub of Ciro and for a real defender instead of Wallace? Alistair?
What do you mean a real defender? Well, yeah, that's quite neatly summarised there. We don't know. I mean, we've been asking that question for most of this summer, really. I mean, the Ciro sub is the absolute priority. We're still not getting it. I mean, clearly, we've just talked about Caicedo, but it does seem like Caicedo needs to be moved on, really, before they're going to get anyone else in. But this is a huge squad, a really bloated squad, and I think the attention of Tari does seem to be shifting a little bit more towards getting players out of the squad rather than getting new players in. Kreco left this week. There's so many players in this squad who really need to find new clubs. So I think if Caicedo was one of them, then hopefully a deal could be done to get a new striker. And as for a defender, I'd love to get, like you said, a real defender come in, but again, I can't really see it happening unless somebody moves out because the squad's too big. So I think if we're going to make any more signings at this point, it has to be a case of kind of one in, one out.
Yeah, I still hope, and that now that Cáceres is back, Inzaghi will change idea and push for Radu, Acerbi and Cáceres. And let's not forget Ramos, that I think can play in all three positions. And even if he's younger, he offers a better result than Wallace and Bastos. Anyway, why don't you try Bastos? We tried Wallace all the summer, and it's like Basta. You know what you're getting from that type of player. Give a chance to another player to show his talent.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, Bastos, you kind of know what you're going to get as well. But I would build this current defence around Luis Felipe, Acerbi, and Radu. I think that's, for me, the best back three that we've got. Possibly Cáceres in place of Luis Felipe, but I just think Felipe showed so much promise last season that he really needs to be given some faith this season and an opportunity to tie down a regular first team spot. I'm sure we'll see a lot of him, but the early signs haven't been suggesting that he's the number one pick. And yeah, like you say, why play Wallace over and over again? I mean, if we're going to be waiting for him to become the next Franco Baresi, we might be here a while,
Yeah, a little too long, you think? Yeah. I can understand trying the same starting 11 when, the season is close to start and you have to get the team ready. But then why play Lulic and Leva knowing that they will miss the first leg, the first game of the season? But now you still can rotate and, give a chance to Bastos, Casares, and so on. So I really don't understand Inzaghi. They have the reason for this, I believe. I don't know. My thought is maybe they wanted to give a final test to Casado and Wallace, and then from the next one they're going to move on. I hope so. Las Vegas Laziali has thoughts Cataldi played well in the few minutes. Does he have a place in the squad? Alistair?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of two comments. So Rami Algendi also said he thought Cataldi can be the new Parolo. He's good at doing runs into the box. So obviously he has impressed some fans. I mean, we've said this from the start, I suppose, haven't we? Because not only is he a talented player, he's a Laziale, but he's also fulfilling the criteria of being one of the 4 homegrown players in the squad. So he does, given his track records, his experience and his ability, I think he's definitely got a part to play this season. What are your thoughts about his best position, Vittorio? I mean, Rami there mentioned that he can be the new Parolo. Do you think that kind of role suits him best?
I think Cataldi paid a lot the fact that Pioli tried to play him like the Vice Biglia. He can play there, but that's not his best position. So I agree that he can be the new Parolo. He's that type of player. So I think there's best suited. The problem there is that you already have Murcia that is that type of player. I think Murcia is the same of Parolo. So I think the reason why Cataldi could leave Lazio is because you already have a replacement there. Berisha as well can play in Parolo position. I don't know if Lazio really switch to a 3-4-2-1 if Cataldi can play next to Leva. Maybe that's another test Inzaghi should take. But as you were saying, it would be cool to keep all those players, like Murgia and Cataldi, because they come from the Primavera, they are Lazio fan, and it's always good to have it in the team. I think, the biggest problem is finding his right position, because if you think he can play like Lucas Leiva, then he's not going to play well because it's not his favorite position.
Yeah, I agree. Which makes me think, I mean, if there was a tactical change to a 3-4-2-1, I think that might not be so good for players like Cataldi and Murgia, who I think would be better placed in the current 3-5-1-1 setup, playing as one of the the Metzalas instead of in a kind of more defensive role that they would have to cover in a 3-4-2-1. So, but I think both of those players, and Cataldi particularly, actually, I think he is versatile enough that he can cover a range of different roles in midfield, and he's played as a more advanced midfielder before, more attacking midfielder. Like you were saying, he's been tried out by Pioli as a kind of regista, and also he's got the engine to do the Parola role. So I think at the moment, he's a good all-round player, but I think that's maybe what's separating him from being a good player, a useful player, into a really important one, is that he maybe needs to focus in on one role and just be really good at it.
Yeah, and the other difference is that Murgia, for example, last season we saw him playing on the left wing a couple of times, and it's a solution Inzaghi tried in some matches, while I don't see Cataldi play there. Cataldi is more a central midfielder. But again, as you were saying, if Cataldi sticks to one position, I think he will perform better. But again, I don't see him as Vice Leiva. And the fact that at the moment Murgia is playing instead of Milinkovic-Savic tells me that, I don't know, maybe even Murgia could struggle to find a place in the starting 11 this season.
That Lucas Leiva?
Sorry, the Murgia will struggle because he's playing. Yeah. He's playing in Milinkovic-Savic position at the moment. I believe that when Berisha would be able to play, Berisha would be the Vice Parolo, at least at the beginning. And so I don't think there are going to be a lot of position available for Murgia and Cataldi in midfield. Obviously, we have to think there is the Europe League, so they're going to be playing more there, I think. than in the Campionato, in the Serie A.
Yeah, but that's a really good yes, a really good depth of options, though, isn't it? I mean, we spoke about that before. I think the midfield is a really strong part of this team now, and the fact that you've got players like Mojin Cataldi, who might not be getting so much game time, given their ability, their potential, experience, and so on. That's really good squad depth in that midfield. So I think that's what we're looking for. I don't think we can say that we need to strengthen the depth of this squad in 3 competitions and then complain about guys not getting enough game time, because that some players will suffer more than others, I suppose, in a big squad. But at least it's good competition for places and good quality options.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think really that the Lazio midfield now it's really complete. You have not only a good depth, but you have a big variety of players. You have Berisha that can play in different positions. You have Lulic that can slide in the central position. Murcia that can play in different positions. That's really good. One point I wanted to talk today was Durmisi. We saw him even in the friendly match. I know that the Alonso friendly match are not so important, but every time Lazio was dangerous, it was often on the left side with Durmisi. But again, he didn't start on yesterday against Arsenal.
Yeah, I want to see more of him, definitely. Perhaps, yeah, he might just be taking a bit more time. I mean, Inzaghi did mention before that he wasn't quite sure about what player he was defensively, so maybe he's wanting to work with him a bit more tactically, perhaps, or see what he can produce on the training ground before he puts him into more games. But yeah, I mean, from what we've seen so far, anyway, there's no doubting that attacking-wise, he does have a lot of talent. So I think you need to be looking ahead to the first game of the season. You already said it's 2 weeks away. So if Lulic isn't going to be playing in that game, Lukaku seems to be pretty much out of the reckoning. So Dormisi is the guy you're looking at to be starting in that match. So it does seem strange to not be putting him into these friendly games if he's likely to be playing his first Lazio game in a very high-profile match against a very good team in front of, a big crowd at the Olimpico. He needs to be prepared for that.
Yeah, and the other player should be Badel, I think. He's the good player who's going to start instead of Lucas Leiva. He started against Arsenal. I think he's a very interesting player. Obviously, he just started training, so it's going to take time a little bit to find his shape for the Serie A.
Yeah. He was obviously one of the guys who's at the World Cup, and being a Croatia player was at the World Cup for the whole way through it. So he is going to take a bit of time probably to recover from the hangover of getting to the second place in the World Cup. So, but yeah, I mean, at least in him, what we don't have with Badel that we do with Dormisi, for example, is a player who's going to have to adapt to a new league, to a new surrounding, all of that. With Badel, you've got a guy who's got, I think, 4 years worth of Serie A experience behind him, so he knows exactly how Lazio play, he knows how the league works, and I think he'll be able to fit into the team relatively easily once he's got back up to full fitness, at least.
Yeah, I think he's a great signing, to be honest. Again, another signing that didn't get a lot of titles on the newspaper, but I think it's going to be very, very interesting, because we are talking about him playing instead of Lucas Leiva, which probably will happen in the first match against Napoli. But he's the type of player that can play in different positions. He can also play trequartista. I don't think that's going to happen because Lazio has a lot of options there. But it's another player that can play in different position in the midfield.
So here's a question. I mean, we're going to do this at the end of the transfer market anyway, I'm sure. But who would you say is the best signing so far that we've made? Who are you most happy with?
It's funny to say that. I don't know at the moment. I mean, Berisha for me.
We need to see them, I suppose.
Say again?
We need to see them play first.
Yeah, that's a valid point. But Berisha, Badel, and you have to see Correa, what he brings to the table. I'm interested in that too.
I think for me, Badel probably is the best sign, not only because he's an experienced player and he's definitely saying.
Alistair, are you still there?
I almost got swept out of the window by that noise, I think. um, what was I saying? Yeah, Bedell, I think for me that is the best deal of the summer, certainly, just because we got him in a free transfer. And considering he's a guy with so much Serie A experience, he's, been at Fiorentina doing well, he's been at Croatia doing well, and also we just didn't really see it coming. So,
yes, to
for
be
me,
honest,
that's definitely the deal of the summer, yeah.
honestly, I was surprised he was still available for Lazio at that point of the summer.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you would have thought that that's such an obvious thing to do. When it comes to getting your targets on a list for the summer, finding players who are leaving at the end of their contract is surely just an easy way of finding quality players without having to pay a lot of money. Yeah, I was amazed it took that long for a club to sign him. And amazed it was us, actually, to be honest, by the time it came about.
Yeah, I think he was in touch with AC Milan, but when everything changed there, he was on the street again. So Lazio was fast enough to jump and sign him as soon as possible. Ramil Gendi points out a valid thing. He was quite happy about Proto yesterday. I think he's a very good goalkeeper, and as we said already in the last podcast, I think he's more than a sub goalkeeper. He could really play in Europe League and give Strakosha a rest without creating problems for the team. I think he's really good.
Yeah, and I think it's much healthier to have someone who's genuinely a threat to Strakosha's position, because if Strakosha makes any big mistakes or his performances slip, then we do actually now have someone who can take his spot. And we spoke about that last season because Strakosha's form did take a little bit of a dip in the second half of the season. And we were saying at the time, look, there's nobody who can step in here. So if there is an injury to him or if his form gets really bad, then what can you do? You've got Guido Guerrieri, who's not played a single game for Lazio, the senior player. And so I think that is an issue. You always want to at least have competition for places across the pitch. Last season we didn't really have that in the goalkeeping position. So Proto, I don't know if I would still see Strakosha as being the first choice there, but at least we've got someone who's a valid alternative now. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, one thing we didn't talk about in the other podcast. Are you a little bit scared, concerned about all these injury players we have? Strakosha, Berisha, Ciro Immobile. There are only a few. Lukaku, and so on. And it's only summer, so the season still didn't start, and we already have a lot of injury players.
Yeah, but I don't think it's that unusual, really, in pre-season. If guys are coming back, having not played for a while, trying to work their way back into it. I don't think it's too much of a concern. I mean, it's much better, for example, to have players who've got injuries at this point of the season rather than when we've got competitive games on, obviously. So that's something. Lazio, we used to be absolutely riddled with injury problems all the time, and last couple of seasons that's changed and it's not become so much of an issue. So obviously the very tail end of last season was when we started picking up problems with guys who'd played too many games, but I'm not too concerned. I think that hopefully most of those guys you mentioned will be back for the start of the season, and then we can see how it goes from there.
Yeah, Immobile trained today with a team. I think Strakosha as well. But the fact is, Strakosha still didn't play an official match this season. He was injured pretty much all the summer training in Oronzo. And Berisha as well. He said in the press conference that it's nothing bad, but still, we didn't see him a lot.
Yeah, and that's a shame. I really, I was quite excited about seeing Berisha. I think he could be a real kind of, could turn out to be a really, really good signing for us. So I'd quite like to set eyes on him as soon as possible. And I was quite looking forward to seeing him in some of these friendly games, how he performed, and particularly these high-profile ones with Arsenal and Dortmund. So the sooner the better with him, really.
Yeah. Alistair, do you have other things to talk about tonight?
I don't think off a lot. I mean, I suppose the one thing is that I'd like to ask you is Borussia Dortmund. Obviously, we've just played Arsenal, who are starting a week earlier than Lazio. So, like Inzaghi said, they're a bit further ahead with their preparation. But Dortmund is the last real test before Napoli, before the season starts. So, what will you be wanting? Like, what are you looking for from Inzaghi and his team in that game?
Well, the problem is Dortmund is probably the biggest test we have now since the starting of the season. So I would probably expect to see the starting 11 that would play against Napoli. So probably without Leva and Lulic. And I would like to see someone else instead of Wallace playing to give at least a go to someone else. Maybe Casares after the World Cup could be playing and test Inzaghi. Show Inzaghi that he's ready and he can play there. I think that's the most important part.
Yeah, I mean, my concern is, I suppose that there's been this slight discussion about finally making tactical change into a different formation, but there's still not too much sign of it, and I think that really has to be tested in pre-season in order for it to become a valid alternative during the main season. Because, I mean, Inzaghi mentioned before, when it gets up and running and you've got 3 games a week and it's that busy, it's very hard to actually have the time to coach your team into a new system. So I'm a bit concerned that if we don't see tactical tweaks being made in the next week in Germany and maybe the Borussia Dortmund game as well, then we might not be getting them at all, and it might just be another season of fairly rigid tactically.
Yes, I agree with you. I think it could be even too late now already if they didn't try something in the last weeks, because if you have only a couple of friendly matches, then maybe you don't have enough time to test it. So that could be a little bit of a problem. Before closing, Correa played yesterday. It was not that much, but still you can see a glimpse of his talent.
Yeah. Yeah, another one, I suppose, who we've got quite high hopes for. I mean, it's quite a big signing. He's spent a fair bit of money on him. He's the Felipe Anderson replacement, so we'll be looking to him to play at that kind of level. But, it's also a bit of an unknown. Obviously, he's been at Sampdoria. He's had a season in Italy, and he's done well at Sevilla. But it's kind of one of these ones where it could go either way, and we're just hoping he explodes next season. But yeah, it's quite hard to say. First of all, what he's going to be like, how well he's going to settle with Lazio, but also what kind of position he's going to have in this squad, because Luis Alberto's definitely going to be the number one in that role. So is his role going to be coming off the bench, on the 60-minute mark? Is he going to be playing Europa League games, or is he actually going to be starting matches?
Well, I think the first one, as you said, he's going to play in Europa League and maybe come in Serie A in the second half of the matches. And eventually, if Inzaghi change tactics and start playing with 2 trequartista, then he can play near Luis Alberto if Milinkovic-Savic is not tested there. But, it's good to have such a talent in your bench with the chance of him coming in the second half of the match when the other team is tired and change the match. So I think, he has a good position because he's not asked to come in immediately and change the match. He has time to learn and improve behind Luis Alberto. So he has time to get his confidence, learn better the tactics, what Inzaghi is asking, and perform well in the second half of the season probably.
Yeah, we'll soon find out. I mean, it's amazing how quickly things can change, really, from what you expect in pre-season to what becomes the kind of plan A, really. So, yeah, we'll soon find out. I mean, with these suspensions as well, first couple of weeks of the season, a few players with slight injury problems, it is going to open the door to some of the kind of more fringe players, perhaps, to make an impression right from the start. So, yeah, it's exciting. It's always exciting a new season, but now it's starting to feel very real. only 2 weeks away. Yeah, I mean, I'm very excited, particularly because I'm actually moving to Rome in 10 days.
Yeah, we
So
forgot to mention on the podcast, right? You're changing. You decide to go to leave
yeah,
Scotland, right? Tell about us everything.
yes. Well, I left my job at the newspaper I work for last week in here in Scotland, and I'll be moving over to live and work in Rome as of next week. So I'm going to be writing as they're working as a freelance journalist out there. So hopefully that means I can get as nice and close to Lazio, and we'll be able to make them aware of the Lazio Lounge community.
Well, that's your job, right?
That's my job. Well, if you pay me, Vittorio, then yes.
Okay, we're going to talk about that afterwards. Alistair, again, as usual, thanks for joining me. Thanks everybody for listening us. Remember, you can find us on Spotify as well, on iTunes, on Spreaker, on YouTube, and follow us on our social platform. You can follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, everybody, and as usual, Forza Lazio.
Watching